Okay, the final piece to this. Hang in there. You're not crazy. You're not alone. We're in this together. Recognize the difference between solitude and isolation. One invites more love, the other perpetuates the fear. Like, your healing path is going to look different from mine and everybody else's, because your unique original cause, first cause of separation wound, is going to be its own thing. But this gave me great comfort. One of the early downloads was about the boomerang as a metaphor for the arc of the human condition. So just hold this big mythological model that whatever you believe about how we got here, right? Whether that's God, the Father, Heavenly Father, looks like, this, or it's Jesus, or it's Muhammad, or it's Buddha, or it's Allah, or it's however you imagine our origin story begins. As a big bang, as a cellular mutation, as a divine. As Einstein says, you get to choose. And choosing is the difference in your life. Whether you perceive this universe as hostile or friendly, you get to choose. So in that point of free will, claiming our free will fully, I offer this metaphor that we have been thrown into this human experience, and it spins and it spins and it spins and it gyrates and it gyrates. And at some point it reaches its furthest, how far out there? How, where are we getting to? Where's the fingerprint of our maker gonna let us get to before this thing has enough? I looked up the physics. Gyrational torque and angular momentum, two physical properties that move energy round, Kundalini spiral, round and round and round, and we get wiser with each iteration. We're coming into the age of Aquarius, the new age of enlightenment, whatever languaging, but like we've been on this has been part of the plan all along, that we would reach this collective choice point. And so when that boomerang reaches its furthest stretch away from source, so source is love. We all seem to agree on that. Our biology confirms that. And we get as far as we can possibly get away from that love before we begin to collapse physically, emotionally, spiritually, economically, educationally, medically, food-wise. Like, our system is just, it's as far out on the edge of unconsciousness as we can bear. And our own rational self survival mechanism, our rational enlightenment, I call it practical spirituality. At some point, we don't need to argue about how we got here or where we go, but that we allow this evolution of our consciousness, its full ride scholarship, to bring us home. Like, we've been on this arc from the very start, coming home to ourselves. We are spheres. We are, the womb is round, the egg is round, even the head of the sperm is round. Round circle holds it all. Mandalas. We've been in this movement to come home to ourselves from our first breath, collectively and individually. And now we are at the almost maximum gyrational torque and angular momentum, like the physics of moving on itself, like coming into a return cycle. There's an energy, there's an edge. Dr. Hawkins identified it with his downward spiral and his upward spiral, and this, leaving the force of fear on the lower half of our shame spectrum behind, and to break out of that, to get above the stratosphere of fear, where our relationship to this existence isn't as heavy as it's been. Our entire experience is shifting to something that has more vital force, more light, more engagement with love, rather than protection from fear. So this boomerang is right out there, and it's hitting its hardest torque right now. And what I saw was those who can stand like a ballerina in the middle, a dancer who knows how to spot to the home as they go round and round, as the chaos accelerates. Those who are on the fringes, hanging on to fear rather than coming into alignment with love, spotting for love, solving for X, breathing with others every day, as this birthing process, as this metamorphic arc is inevitable. The shift is inevitable. We've been shifting from the very start. Each generation asking better questions, surrendering more and more and more of the blame and shame from the past. Like, how far back do you go to find the bad guy? And how far out in front do you want to start pointing to stay focused on who's the bad guy now? Or do we reach this point? And I had this interaction recently with somebody very dear to me in my life, where I was hanging on to wanting to fix her perception of me. And it has kept us apart for a long time. And I wasn't seeing my role in it. But I get it now. I was still holding on to the hurt of the past and expecting her to show up now in the present with me. Wasn't safe for either of us. So these words came to me, kind of like those words before, like one of the earlier episodes I shared this big conflict with this brother in our community, and after 2 years of angst, I sat with grandmother and I was like, this is what I'm going to say, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this. Notice the arms, right? Shoulders. Or I'm going to show up and say the following: I apologize for how my wounding spilled into your world. Like, that was a big lesson for me. And it freed me. It freed me. And this next phrase of words ended up freeing me with somebody who's means so much to me. I wanted so badly for her to understand where I was coming from and what I was going through at those times when I was unconscious to her needs. And I wanted to have a clean up on aisle 3 session to clean up her perceptions of me, because there's been some feeling that it was deliberate. Boy, if I know one thing about parents, it's that we don't hurt our kids deliberately. It's just not in us to do that. I know my mom didn't mean to hurt me. And thanks to Mama Aya, she showed me my original wound, and an hour later showed me my father's original wound. Yeah, there's nothing to forgive. There's just acceptance of our unconsciousness, this moment of grace, and these words fell into place between she and I. I said, it doesn't matter how we got here. What I wonder about is, do you ache for me the way I ache for you? How many parents and children and friends and loved ones ache for each other, but we don't know how to build that bridge between us. Falling in love with trust. What one thing would you show up for in this lifetime that would make everything you do from this moment on a joyful pursuit? What is calling you into your most inspired master of your own story home space? Man, I didn't want to end this life without figuring that out. I wanted to know who I was, all in, and that pursuit has led me to this joyous, grateful, humble, long-winded, doing it from her nightgown on her back porch kind of gal. I wouldn't change a thing about my life, even the really hard stuff, because man, I am the living embodiment of my story. And I'm in a position now to invite a new story for myself, one where I have found, there's a line in the musical, and I won't get it right, something about never an anxiety or release of anxiety. That's not it. I'll have to come back to you, but there is a moment where the anxieties of the passengers are met with such integrous compassion. If but for the grace of God, go I see you in me. I'm showing up not just for me, but for we. And in showing up for the we, I am tending the me. This algorithm of trust has been infused with a malware of fear. And to release the fear, to fall in love with trust, comes down to falling in love with trusting your journey, and that everybody else is on their journey, and that all of our policies, all of our politics, all of our underlying contradictions to harmony and peace on earth come down to our willingness to show up more curious about our future together than angry about our past. May it be so. Aho.